a community closely bounded, but it's essential that our people, okay?
Okay.
It is quite unimportant whether we ourselves live, but it's essential that our people shall live, that Germany shall live. The sacrifice that is demanded of us is not greater than the sacrifice that many generations have made. If we form a community closely bound together by vows, ready for anything, resolved never to surrender, and our will master every hardship and difficulty, okay? It is the unity of will that matters, all right? 1942,
Why didn't you finish the quote?
It's the unity of...
You put the whole thing on the screen. We form a community closely bound together by vows, ready for anything, resolved never to surrender, then our will master every hardship and difficulty. And I would like to close the declaration that I once made when I began the struggle for power in the Reich. I then said, if our will is so strong that no hardship and suffering can subdue it, then our will and our German might shall prevail. This even supports his will interpretation. Why not read that part?
Resolved never to surrender, and our will master every hardship and difficulty, okay? It is the unity of will that matters. All right, 1942, November 8th, it's basically at a time in history when the Germans understand they've lost the war. The Americans are now in the war. The Americans are getting ready to invade Europe. The German invasion of the Soviet Union has failed, okay? They're bogged down in the Soviet Union. Germany is overstretched. The entire world has allied itself against Germany, okay?
I'm so sorry. Hold on, wait. I just need to check some dates here. The U.S.'s first formal insertion into mainland Europe was the Normandy, right? In 44? Okay. We'd already been, by 42, Pearl Harbor was in, that was 41, right? Pearl Harbor, African theater, we don't talk about that in the USA. No one cares. Pearl Harbor was 41, right? December 7, okay. What was the big, what was the huge, when Germany was like pretty in Russia, what was the battle? Was it Stalingrad, or am I making this up? I can't, sometimes I feel like I'm saying names of places from Metal Gear Solid 3 instead. Okay. Stalingrad, battle, World War II. Battle of Stalingrad was from mid 42 to 43. Okay, so they were getting hard at this point. Okay.
So the war is thought to be lost. But let's look at what Hitler has to say.
Okay.
It is with the same conviction that I now stand before you and has never left me, either since the day on which, as an unknown man in the city, I began to struggle first for the soul of the German people and then on beyond the city for more and more followers. In the beginning, I did not have much more to give than faith, the faith that if anyone pursues a just aim, I with unchanging and undisturbed loyalty and never lets himself be diverted from it, but puts everything into it, then others will be found who are determined to be his followers, and that from this whole and ever stronger faith must gradually radiate to the whole people. Okay, so this is unity of will.
So this is the most random.
We reject reality. Reality does not matter because we impose our will on reality. As long as we have faith, as long as we have unity of will, we will triumph, okay?
Okay.
All right, so let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
We're talking about Kaliningrad, right?
The beginning.
It is one of the greatest injustices in human history that Königsberg, which was
part of
for the longest time,
I don't know, German something?
The cradle of human civilization, the epicenter of the Enlightenment, it is now completely destroyed. Okay?
Damn.
But, and this is an idea from Wagner, okay?
Okay.
By destroying this, the world has cursed itself. Okay?
Wow, true.
Let me explain why.
Tell us.
First of all, the German question now is more relevant than ever before. You've destroyed Königsberg, but you have not destroyed the desire for unity among the German people. Okay? So this is a memory that will not fade. Okay? So will the Germans seek vengeance? Will another Hitler arise to unite the German people? Now, what you guys don't know is that the Prussians were one of the main forces opposing Hitler as well as inhibiting Hitler. Okay? Because Prussia had a very proud culture and it's very the strongest part of Germany. But now that they destroyed Prussia, if another Hitler arises, there's really nothing to stop him. Okay? That's the first problem. Second question is, okay, let's go back to this map. Europe and Russia are about to go to war with each other, right?
Okay.
Okay. Well, if you are Europe and you go into Ukraine, you're going to be slaughtered, okay?
Okay.
But this is Kaliningrad, Russian territory, 500,000 Russians, right? You can blockade Kaliningrad.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
So this could be the start of World War III right here.
Oh, another World War III entry point. Holy shit.
Does that make sense to you guys?
Jesus.
So the Europeans blockade Kaliningrad and they try to starve the people, Putin would have no choice but to intervene.
Yeah.
Okay? But the main problem is this. Königsberg was one of the main intellectual, scientific, and cultural centers of Europe. That its loss reduced the innovative potential of humanity. All right? So what I will show you next class when we discuss Kant is...
What? Oh, I don't know enough philosophy to enjoy that one as much as I should be able to. Oh my God. Does he do every single topic? Does he know everything? He's a polymath. Somebody was linking, apparently this guy is just a high school teacher? Is that from 2008 to 2010, Mr. Zhuiken Zhang built and managed a study abroad program at Shenzhen Middle School in Shenzhen, China, to promote the ideas of creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking skills in China. From 2010 to 2012, he built and managed the international division at Peking University High School in Beijing, China, to promote the ideas of global citizenship and service learning in China. In April 2014, he published the book Creative China in China about his experiences working in the Chinese public school system. And he's currently the deputy principal of Tsinghua University High School in Beijing, China. What? Sorry.
All right. So what I will show you next class when we discuss Kant is science comes from philosophy. Okay?
Philosophy. What does it mean? Like all the early sciences technically were like the philosophy of like balls, sex, and the philosophy of vision. I think they all branched off. That's technically true.
Culture leads to philosophy, which leads to science, which leads to technology. You cannot have science independent of philosophy. When you destroy a center of philosophical innovation, you destroy a center for scientific progress. Okay? So this is something that we will discuss in depth next class as well. So when we look at Kant. So that is Germany. Okay, any questions about what we've learned so far? Was this clear to you guys? Okay.
Anybody have any questions about anything? So you said a thing about that we didn't have any edit. No, never mind. No questions. Nobody's gonna ask about that. That's just
questions. Jimmy?
How can Hitler be grown like that?
How can Hitler be grown? How can Hitler be...
Jimmy?
How can Hitler be grown like that?
Yeah, okay.
Personal charisma?
Where did Hitler come from, right? How did Hitler become so charismatic? Okay. So this...
I think we know the answer to this. Was it immediately after World War I he was sent to go do... I don't remember. He was sent to go study some military study or help with some people over some bullshit. And I think apparently he dramatically improved on his rhetoric. 1919, I think, maybe? I don't know why I'm saying it like this guy's about to shed some light on that, but let's see what he says.
Randomness to life, okay?
Okay, base. True.
Where did Hitler...
It was random. This guy would be the ultimate debate. Just so you know, okay, because I know they're fans of me and you guys think highly of me. If I debated this guy, I would get destroyed, okay? This guy would just obliterate me on every single level, okay? Through every single discipline, everywhere.
Come from, right? How did Hitler become so charismatic? Okay. So there's a lot of randomness to life, okay? There's a lot of like randomness going on in life.
And he rolled high in charisma.
So the army wanted to inhibit the growth of the socialist left-wing movement.
Oh, holy sh! Wait, he might actually give the right answer.
And it did so by financing these right-wing parties. The Nazi Party was just one of many parties that the army financed and supported, okay?
Oh, never mind.
Hitler became a spy and he became part of this movement. And as such, he became exposed to a lot of the ideas of the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party, a lot of the ideas come from Nietzsche and Wagner and others as well. Okay.
Hold on. When did the Nazi Party formally get? I don't think that's true at all. Wasn't Hitler doing a bunch of shit and then eventually I don't even remember what the name of that was beforehand. They did take a lot of inspiration from philosophers or whatever, but supposedly they brutally like reworked parts of philosophy. That was the joke I made about Nietzsche earlier, is they'll take like bits and pieces from philosophers and try to make it sound. But they also did the same thing with the history of the German Empire as well. and I think they glorified and made up a lot of shit about Bismarck, that dude.
And over time, Hitler came to believe that he was the Messiah. Okay? He was the Messiah dedicated to restoring German unity.
Based.
Okay, and
Well, that's not based. Sorry.
I mean, like, this is hard to understand, but human population is very diverse.
Okay.
So you always have a subset of people who have these delusions of grandeur. And if, in certain circumstances, they will be proven right. Okay? That doesn't make sense. Okay? So, another way of saying this is the army needed someone to play the part of the Ubermensch, the Superman, who could unite the German people and create national unity so the army could seek its vengeance against the rest of Europe and unite the German people.
Like, this is trying to make it sound like there was some dude behind Hitler or the military. Like, I'm pretty sure the formal collection of the, I forgot all the names, bro. It's been too long. Was it the, what the f am I thinking of? The name of the thing that fell to give rise to the Reich. The name of the, oh my God. Tell me. The name of the empire, the name of the Weimar Republic. Thank you. Jesus. He's making it sound like the Weimar Republic was like secretly trying to fund Hitler to create some dude to bring the to bring the army. I don't believe any of that is true. None of this.
Seek its vengeance against the rest of Europe and unite the German people. Okay, so they're looking for this role, and then Hitler auditioned for this role, and he got the role. Okay, does that make sense? And this is important because towards the end of the class, we'll discuss Donald Trump. And what I will show you is, this is exactly what happened with Donald Trump. Okay? So the the American military needs an Ubermensch to lead America to war against Putin. And there were different people who auditioned. Biden auditioned, who was terrible. Harris auditioned, who was terrible. And they picked Donald Trump. Okay? So it's a very similar pattern. It's a very familiar pattern in human history. You can also argue that Napoleon was the same way. Okay? And what makes these people different from us, Napoleon, Hitler, Julius Caesar, Trump, is they are the total expression of the Zion will. You understand? They have absolutely no compassion, no sympathy for anyone. They believe they are here on a divine mission. They are complete. They are the will itself, and they must impose their will on others to save the world. Does that make sense? So look at Donald Trump, okay? If you want to understand Hitler, look at Donald Trump. The guy's like almost 80. He doesn't sleep, okay? He's off traveling around the world all the time. The guy in his, when he was campaigning, he was giving like 3 speeches a day, right? He would get up in the morning at 4 o'clock, fly somewhere, give his 2-hour speech. People loved him. Then he would get on the plane, fly somewhere else. And he could not stop talking to reporters, okay? He has tremendous energy that comes from the perfect expression of the will. You understand? Donald Trump is all will, all desire, all ego, and no sympathy, no empathy, no compassion. That's Hitler and Napoleon.
When they're citizen or their people think they are like too relentless with violence.
Yeah, that's a great question. So won't people rebel against us? Won't people think this is reckless? And so what Schopenhauer and Nietzsche and others will say is,
he knows every single thing in history. He knows all of it.
What, first and foremost, is a return to unity of will, right? In the very beginning, the will was God. That's the Big Bang. And then the will expanded itself, right? And so we find ourselves alone in an ocean of alienation. And what our hearts really aspire to is return to a unity of will. And so when someone says, you can be part of a movement to transform the world, that's much more appealing to us psychologically than to say, oh, you know what? Come to school, do your homework, get good grades, do the SAT, get into a top 50 American school, become an accountant, and for 50 years, do something meaningless, but make a lot of money, and then you will die a happy person. Like seriously, there's no competition, right? There's no competition. Donald Trump is saying to Americans, we will make America great again. We will be a civilization, a great civilization again. It will require sacrifice. It will require my sacrifice. 2008 is...
Somebody linked me at times. I'm so sorry. Hold on, we're just, the opening on Khan, I just have to hear.
The great financial crisis. Why did it happen? It happened because America had become a gambling economy. And so it
become a what?
happened because America had become a gambling economy.
A gambling economy.
So it had to take money and invest it. The problem, though, is
What does that even mean? He's a master speaker. He just says just things.
and
Please give us and the 3 successful things for an economy are a fiat currency, a digital banking system with 2-factor authentication, and the federal holiday system.
so it had to take money and invest it. The problem, though, is there's too much money flowing into America, and there's not enough good investments. So what Wall Street did was it started to invest in really bad investments. It was encouraging people with no money to go and buy like 5 houses, okay?
There's you can see the threads that he's pulling. I was like,
And eventually they would have to default. And when they default, it would create a cascading effect where the entire global economy would collapse. And that's what was the 2008 great financial crisis.
Bro.
To solve this problem, what America did was print money, okay? Look at this, guys.
Bro.
Up until the year 1980, America had about $1 trillion in debt,
Uh-huh.
okay? America was founded in 1776. By the year 1980, about 20 years later,
Is the M1 money supply? M1, M2, I think M3 is kind of theoretical. It doesn't have to do with the types of currency. Oh God, I'm gonna guess and be totally wrong. I've looked it up 3 times. I keep forgetting it. M1 is isn't M1 physical currency? M2 is accounts or whatever. Let's just real quick. I don't remember. Give me M1, also called narrow money, is often synonymous with money supply in reports from the financial media. This is a count of all the notes and coins that are in circulation, whether they're in someone's wallet or a bank teller's drawer, plus other money equivalents that can be converted easily to cash. For example, a regular bank savings account is a money equivalent. The account holder can convert those savings to cash at any time and instantly. The M2 money supply includes the M1 plus short-term time deposits in banks and money market funds. Generally, terms of less than a year are considered short-term. And then M3, MO, and MB, these aren't separately represented, and no one cares about this. What did he say? Is he just saying the M1 money supply is just debt? That's his equivalence here?
debt, okay? What it did was print money, okay? Look at this, guys. Up until the year 1980, America had about $1 trillion in debt.
Well, I mean, you can just look at Fred, U.S. national debt historical. I don't know why he wouldn't just use this graph instead. Is he using this graph and he just labeled it wrong? No, I don't think he is.
Okay? America was founded in 1776. By the year 1980, about 20 years later, it had $1 trillion in debt. Today, 1776, America had about $1 trillion in debt. Okay? America was founded in 1776. By the year 1980, about 20 years later, it had $1 trillion in debt. Today, it has now $37 trillion in debt. Okay? This is all money printing.
That's not strictly what that is. I think this is not a graph. This is the numbers. This is where's the 30. All right. Okay. I don't know. All right.
Boom. You see a steep curve going all the way up.
All the way up.
All right. The economy in America right now is really screwed up. The reason why is the stock market is worth twice as much as the real economy.
Well, actually, hold on. That might not be fair. Let me think for a minute. Could you actually measure total U.S. debt with the M1 money supply? Actually, maybe you could. Or no, actually, hold on. Let me think. If there are $100 in circulation in an economy, does that necessarily mean that the U.S. government would have that? No. Oh, someone in chat said no. I'm sure there's a correlation, especially with quantitative easing and interest rates and all that. I'm sure it's correlated. I don't think it's strictly the same thing, but
Economy. Okay, that makes no sense at all.
U.S. equity market cap to GDP ratio at all-time high.
The total value of the U.S. economy is half of that of the stock market. Okay, so this shows you that right now America is living in a fantasy. It's a make-believe economy.
So just to be clear, the GDP is not the total amount of capitalization of the entire United States. The GDP is what would be would this be equivalent to the revenue sheet of a business? Maybe GDP is just how much you're producing. That's not accounting for all of your assets. Your market capitalization is theoretically the total Actually, that's not even really your assets. That's just the valuation of the company, right? I don't know why you would ever necessarily compare these two numbers ever, but
The other problem is this massive wealth inequality. Okay.
Okay.
So as you can see, the wealthy people are pretty wealthy, but by 2000, but by 1980, the time of Reagan, it shoots all the way up. Okay. So you have this massive wealth inequality being
okay.
created in the United States.
Wait, what was that graph? What were we even looking at? Is he gonna explain? Did he make this? What? Wait, what are we looking at? Something shut up. Top 0.01% U.S. income share, including capital gains. Okay, so this is the share of income, including capital gains, of the top 0.01% in the United States. Okay. And the S&P deflated by the
But 1980, the time of Reagan, it shoots all the way up. Okay, so you have this massive wealth inequality being
okay. It would have been nice if he would have like explained what this was, but that's okay. We don't need it.
created in the United States.
Okay. But for the very wealthy, the story is completely different. Their after-tax incomes have risen much faster than GDP. I like how some of these graphs are like he pulled like data from Fred and made his own, and then others are coming from some paper, I guess, and then this is coming from some website.
This also shows you
I'm sorry, I don't know why that was funny.
how wealthy the top 0.001% are relative to everyone else, okay? So the main beneficiaries of all these reforms of this financiation has been the ultra wealthy in America.
Okay. When you use a whole bunch of sources like this, it's called synchronicity also.
At the same time, if you're an average American, all you've seen is your debt go up, okay?
Okay.
Your debt has gone way up. So you can make the argument that the system is designed to exploit the middle class
Okay.
by forcing them into debt so as to enrich the wealthy's investments, okay?
Wow.
That's the American system. And in fact, you can argue the global system. So in 2008, the global economy collapses.
Okay.
So what happens, okay, and I believe this is what happened. I don't think this is conspiracy theory. The central bank...
Oh, shit. He said that there's no evidence for the Holocaust, and he didn't even qualify that with that. Now, we're about to get some crazy shit. Okay, here we go. Okay.
What happens, okay, and I believe this is what happened. I don't think this is conspiracy theory.
Okay.
The central banks basically encouraged the Chinese central bank to start printing money, right?
Okay.
And this is important because when you start printing money and you invest in real estate, you need resources. You need to buy resources from Australia, from Brazil. And this is what saves the global economy. And this all looks very impressive, guys.
What is
and this is what saves the...
What even is this a picture of? Is he pulling it like random time guesser? I don't know what this is.
Global economy. And this all looks very impressive, guys.
Okay.
Like I know when you go outside and you see all these big buildings and fancy
It does look pretty impressive.
railways, it's all very impressive. But remember, okay, this is really important.
Okay.
Behind the veneer of this prosperity are three things.
What? Oh! Adaptability to terrain, will to fight, and supply lines.
Massive debt, right?
Oh.
Because this money is being printed. So someone has to pay this off. You guys, not the current people, but you guys or your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren, okay? But someone has to pay off this debt. That's number one. Number two is this has created massive inequality in China, right? So the rich are filthy rich and the poor aren't that much better off. The third problem that's really important is it's created a lot of political corruption.
Okay.
All right? So behind all this veneer are corruption, inequality, and debt. And this is what, okay? So a really important...
This is the best. This might be the best YouTube channel I've ever seen in my life.
lesson for you guys to understand the Chinese relationship with America is this. There's this very, very famous quote by Charles Baudelaire who said, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist."
Okay.
Well, I'm going to paraphrase him. Okay. And this is what I think is the relationship between America and China. The greatest trick America played was convincing China it could be rich.
Wow, deep.
All right. This is no different from 1985, the Plastic Accords, when America basically encouraged the Japanese to increase the value of their yen, which led to economic collapse. Well, but when the Americans encouraged the Chinese to print money in about 2008 and about 2015, it basically created conditions for China's economic collapse, okay? All right, this is what led to the rise of this man, our dear fearless leader, okay?
She.
I believe his intentions
Are good. Thank
I
you.
think he wants to save
He does want to save China, and he's very good. He just is a little misguided or doesn't understand some things.
China from this global financial capitalist system.
Yes.
He needs to maintain China's independence and sovereignty. And he's fighting very hard to save the Chinese nation.
Oh, but he's fighting against America.
Okay, that's what I believe.
America's against him.
And so you can make the argument that what's happening today in China is no different from the Opium Wars. Remember, Britain created an opium epidemic in China in order to enslave the Chinese economy to the global financial system, right? That was the Opium Wars. Well, the same is happening
Basically like the CIA in Harlem with crack cocaine, except
today, where the Americans have basically created a Chinese dependency on US dollars, right? What's the Chinese dream? The Chinese dream is work hard, get into a good school,
and go to America.
get rich, move your money and your children to the United States.
Yes.
That's the Chinese dream,
King.
all right? And if that's a dream, then eventually the civilization won't last very long. Am I wrong? Is that not the Chinese dream? All right. All right, so now you have the COVID.
What is he teaching in China? He's in China, right? And all these kids are like speaking decent, fluent English, or maybe that's really common for Beijing students in high school. I don't know, maybe I guess.
Crisis where China's locked down for 3 years. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, okay? But you can make the argument that some of this was intentional in order to implode the Chinese economy. Why?
Wait, what's
Because
that?
I'm not a conspiracy theorist where China's locked down
Hold on.
for 3 years.
Okay.
Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, okay? But you can make the argument that some of this was intentional in order to implode the Chinese economy. Why? Because the Chinese economy had become a system of transferring wealth from China to the United States. So by imploding the economy, you're stopping this drainage, okay?
Okay.
All right. This also led to the rise of this man, Vladimir Putin,
Okay.
who is very much like Joseph Stalin. He understands the grand picture. He understands strategy, grand strategy. He understands that now it's time to strike. Why? Because America has created this crazy, fantastical system, right? Where there's a hierarchy of prices. In the American system, the Pax Americana, many resources are the least valuable, okay? The basis are the resources, right?
Okay.
Which is what Russia has a lot of. Up next in this pyramid is manufacturing, which is what China does.
Okay.
Then up next
It's
is
service.
knowledge economy.
Oh, fuck.
So professionals.
Okay.
And that's what Europe and America does really well, okay?
Okay.
And at the very top of this pyramid are the financiers, finance.
The
And that's what Wall Street dominates.
You
okay?
know, you
so
know.
this is the pyramid.
you know, you know.
What Putin said is this. What Putin said is, you know what? If I can control the world's resources, the oil, the food, so then I can invert this pyramid so that resource at the top. And that's why Russia invaded Ukraine. Because if Russia were able to dominate Ukraine, Russia
He couldn't even make it through this. What?
and Ukraine together would control one third of the world's carbohydrates. Without Russian food, Africa and the Middle East would both starve to death.
Excuse me, as a man from Nebraska, okay, I feel like we could grow a lot of carbohydrates in the United States, and I feel like in other places in the world. Now, not to knock my Ukrainian brothers, okay, the breadbasket of the world. I know they have a lot of farmland there, but I think we can handle it, okay?
Okay? And so that is the rationale for Putin's invasion of Ukraine. He's a genius. He understands
He's trying to take over the wheat fields.
there's fundamental weakness in the American system. Okay? If you're able to control the resources, you are able to strangle this financial system. Okay? So by invading Ukraine, Putin showed
Why does he have this on a slide? It's not even a quote, it's just a thing he's saying. What?
that America is a paper tiger. You are able.
What is this from Arma? Is this a video game or is this a real? I think that's real. It looks real.
So by invading Ukraine, Putin shows that America is a paper tiger. Faith in the USD rests on the aura of the American military's inevitability and invincibility. This now forces the Americans to invade Iran.
Putin showed America is a paper tiger when they invaded Ukraine and they lost.
Okay, does that make
Well, I mean, in the beginning, it was a pretty embarrassing thing.
sense to you guys? The logic here is very simple.
Yes.
Why does Saudi Arabia buy US dollars, even though they know it's not worth anything? Why?
Petrodollar. Oh my God. Are we going to work the petrodollar in here? Please, 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 please. I'm going to come again. I've come so many times. My come cannon is
What does Japan buy US dollars? What is Germany? The answer is
petro.
they're afraid that if they don't buy US dollars,
The U.S. will invade them or bully them. God,
America will come invade them.
God damn it.
Okay? They have no choice in the matter. But now that Putin has showed that, actually, you know what? The American military is not as strong as you think it is. The American military now has no choice but to prove it is as strong as people believe. It needs to restore faith in the military in order to restore faith in the US dollar. Okay, does that make sense? That's why the American
That's why they did the hurricanes into Nepal and Bangladesh. I think these are mountains, right?
military has no choice in the matter but to invade Iran.
Oh,
Okay? Because if they're able to invade
why is this the map that he brought up for Iran? He could have found a more zoomed in map.
Iran, they're able to control the entire flow of Middle East oil. Also,
If they control Iran, they control all of that.
they're able to control
Oh, it's a Chinese-centric map. Oh, like we do in the U.S., kind of. Makes sense. Okay, this is the only map.
active trade throughout the world, okay? Iran is really the center of the world in terms of global trade. So these two factors mean that America needs to eventually invade Iran.
Okay. What does that say there? Oh, I think they're Chinese characters. Never mind. Just curious.
Factors mean that America needs to eventually invade Iran. All right, once it invades Iran, it creates a huge problem for China and Japan.
Wait. Are these AI answers? There's the. This is a Google answer for AI. That's the link, right? Oh, bro. Oh, kill me. It's okay. All right, go ahead.
Japan and South Korea. Why?
Why?
Because guess what?
Tell
These
me.
three nations gets most of this oil
From the Middle East?
right?
Holy
Japan imports roughly 89% of its oil from the Middle East. And guess what, guys?
What?
Japan is the largest buyer of US dollars.
Holy sh.
Japan ever says, you know what, screw this, we're not buying US dollars, the American economy goes bankrupt. So when you invade Iran, you control the oil supply, you control the entire Japanese economy.
Oh my
You
God.
can charge whatever price you want for oil. All right, this explains the Israel-Palestine conflict. Because America
Yes.
just can't go invade Iran for no reason. It needs
What is this? This is an AI image, right? What is this?
a pretext. The perfect pretext. America just can't go invade Iran for no reason. It needs a pretext.
Okay.
The perfect pretext is Israel comes in conflict with Iran. Iran attacks Israel. The United States must now defend Israel because Israel is its ally. Right? Does that make sense?
Oh.
So America needs a scapegoat. That scapegoat is Israel.
Okay.
That explains why there's so much conflict right now in the Middle East.
Gotcha.
Look at this map, okay?
Okay, wait. What do you think they're labeling? What do we think in their labeling here? American troops. Brew. Okay, let's go.
This is Iran. It's surrounded by American bases. You have 14,000 troops in Afghanistan. You've got like thousands more over here, okay?
Do we really? Do we still have that many in Afghanistan? Wait, U.S. base, Afghanistan. I thought we kind of. I thought we left. I thought I saw videos of us leaving that place. That was. I don't think we had 15,000 troops when Trump left after his first term. I'm pretty sure we only had like 5,000 left. How old is this map? Okay, based. Let's go.
Iran is surrounded. It seems to me that America's been preparing to invade Iran for the past 20 years.
Okay.
And she's looking for the perfect opportunity.
Oh, 20 years through multiple U.S. presidencies and everything. Okay.
All right. Problem, though, is that
Oh, we didn't consider.
Iran is not an adversary that America can defeat. The reason why is the geography of Iran.
Remember the three things. Oh, thank God. Now our other history lesson's going to help us here, guys.
Yes.
You remember the Peloponnesian War, right?
In 2003, America went to Iraq and destroyed Iraq. Why? Iraq's a desert. It's flat plains. America has bombs. It has fighter planes, right? It's pretty easy to destroy a desert. But Iran is all mountains. These fighter planes do no good against mountains. You can't
You can't fucking fly through a fucking mountain, idiot.
bomb a mountain into submission.
Does he think does he think they all live in caves? Does he think is like Tehran like a cave society?
Okay? So if America were to invade Iran,
I'm sorry.
there's very little chance that America would win this war.
Also, I feel like it's a little bit awkward to be talking about how we can't bomb mountains when we literally just bombed like some of the deepest mountain bases ever.
In fact, it may be the end of the American empire.
Oh, no!
And Putin has a plan, okay? Putin is a genius. He knows exactly what will happen. So Putin is preparing for this possible invasion of Iran.
Okay.
So this is a really important picture.
Yes.
Putin signed an agreement with Kim Jong-un. The agreement is something called a mutual defense pact,
Okay.
which means that if North Korea is ever attacked, Putin will come to his aid.
Thank God.
All right? Now, why would Putin do this? This is really strange. The answer is this. The answer is, if America attacks Iran, he needs to throw America off balance by creating a conflict somewhere else. The best place to create a conflict would be Southeast Asia, right? Now, you would think, wait a minute here. Putin and China are best friends. If America invades Iran, then China may invade Taiwan. But
You mean China would invade China?
I already told you this.
Careful.
China is dependent on the American economy. So I do not believe this will happen. Okay, and Putin is fairly certain this won't happen either. That's why he's now best friends with Kim Jong-un.
Oh.
Because Kim Jong-un, if he were to menace South Korea, that would throw the American military off balance. Because now there is war on 3 fronts: Ukraine, North Korea, and Iran. Okay, that's the grand strategy of Putin. This is his trump card.
Okay. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Now,
Now.
what I'm saying here is this. I'm saying, like, I know there's a lot of conflict now between China and America.
Okay.
There's a trade war going on.
Yeah.
But I think this will pass. I think there'll be a rapprochement between China and America because both economies are dependent on each other,
Okay.
right? So I think this friendship between Putin and China won't last very long. There's also really a lot of geopolitical reasons why this friendship won't last very long, right? Because China and Russia have a lot of geopolitical conflicts, right? They share a border. They're trying to vie for influence in in Central Asia. There's lots of reasons why, in the long term, China and Russia will eventually have to break apart, which means that Putin now sees his best friend could be Germany. Okay, these I think are going to be the 2 big geopolitical surprises in the next 5 years. First of all, America and China will become best friends, or not best friends, but they'll have a rapprochement. And then Germany and Russia will have a rapprochement. Okay. All right. So,
Hey, at least he's not using an AI picture. Okay.
Donald Trump, President of the United States, he wants a 3rd term. Okay. He's creating everything he's doing right now is because he wants to be king of the United States. He wants a 3rd term, okay, for a variety of reasons. Okay, I won't go into many reasons, okay, but he's that narcissistic. He has to solve a problem. This problem is the national debt, right?
Okay.
It's now $37 trillion. You can't pay this off. You can never pay this off.
Yeah.
But the theory is this. The theory is like, as long as you are the greatest military in the world, as long as you can go invade everyone, you don't have to pay this off. You can constantly increase this debt. Okay? That's the theory. This explains the U.S.-China trade war.
Oh, okay. This actually makes a lot of sense.
Everything that we're seeing today is because Donald Trump needs to come to an agreement with China for a variety of reasons. Okay, the first reason is Trump wants to invade Iran, and so he needs to be on good terms with China. Okay? Another reason is he needs people to buy U.S. dollars, right? And right now there's a lot of financial repression in China, meaning that you can't convert Chinese currency into U.S. currency. American investors aren't allowed to come to China and buy up the Chinese financial system. Trump wants China to open up.
This man just broke down world history and predicted the future in an hour. He ended the series just as Israel bombed Iran. This is crazy. This one lecture provides more relevant information than 80 hours of cable and mainstream news. I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf. And so do all who live to see such times. But this is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. 2 weeks ago, this channel had less than 5,000 subscribers. Now it has over 250,000. Now it has over 340,000. Wow. The comparison between ancient Athens and modern America, especially in how both preach democracy and freedom while simultaneously ruling with mafia-like tactics, is mind-blowing. History really does repeat itself. This channel has been one of these hidden gems on YouTube. Great lectures with very interesting takes and predictions. Hope to see more.
Trump needs to create more interdependency between China and the United States.
Newton's divine plan. Where is the video on? Oh my god, he's got a theory of everything? Holy sh... All right.
To Immanuel Kant and Friedrich Hegel. So my main argument is that Kant is really taking the main thesis of Dante, which is the imagination is the animating force of the universe, and love is the unifying force of the universe. And what he will do is he will use his epistemology. Epistemology just means theory of knowledge. How do we know what we know?
Is that a German word? Or does this mean epistemology? Or is he saying that and I'm just misunderstanding and I'm just not hearing him? Never mind.
And he will use...
Sorry, my bad.
And then he will do three things. He will clarify it.
Okay.
So if you read Dante, it's not very explicit what he...
I'm not gonna. I haven't formally studied any philosophy, so I don't know how wrong he's gonna be on any of this. So I can't enjoy this as much. I'm just gonna be brainwashed.
He's saying you have to interpret him properly. And what Kant will do is make Dante explicit to the world. Then he will rationalize it. Rationalize it just means that he will remove divinity, he will remove theology from it and create a system of logic, okay? And so then he will systemize it. All right, so this is the mission of Kant, to take the secret of the universe as first presented in Dante and then create a system of logic that then is able to incorporate itself into science and history and philosophy in the world that we know. All right, so together,
Dante is in Dante's Divine Comedy? Wait, did that dude do philosophy? Did Kant just build on Dante? There must have been other people writing before Kant that were more relevant, no? Or
Dante and Kant really did create the world that we live in today. All right, so let's first talk about the background. Like, why is Kant engaged in this project? So for most of Western history, there have been two major philosophers. They are Plato
and Aristotle.
and
the guys.
Aristotle.
Yes, and Einstein.
And up until the point, and up until Kant, you could divide all philosophy into these two major camps. Plato believes that God is called a form of the good, form of the good. So the form of the good, it is this perfect, immaculate, eternal force that emanates, breathes, thinks. And then he creates something called the ideals. And these are the perfect conceptions of beauty, reason, justice. And then these ideals give rise to the forms, okay? And these are the perfect encapsulation of these ideals. So think of the perfect horse, or the perfect chair, or the perfect square.
Wasn't a fan of that. Watched your Ethan versus Sun video. Loved every second. I cannot stand Hassan. Welcome, Jeffersonian. We define ourselves by our hatred of Hassan here.
Okay?
That's literally all we talk about. And we might even be late, actually. We're supposed to be in another Hassan hate for 5 minutes.
Completing the actions required by clause I through.
We live, this is the real world, okay? This is what is true and real.
Okay.
We live in the shadow world. So remember back to the allegory of the cave. So everything in the shadow world is only an imitation of the forms.
Okay.
And so in this conception, what is good is to move towards the form of the good, to return to the form of the good, and what is evil is to move away from the form of the good. Okay, that's why for Plato, art, poetry is evil, because you're imitating imitation. And why for Plato, mathematics and philosophy are inherently good.
Did Plato really believe art was evil? Plato, art, evil. Plato's aesthetics. There's no way we're reading all this, but we can read the intro. If aesthetics is the philosophical inquiry into beauty or another aesthetic value, and art, then, or another aesthetic beauty, and art, then the strike. Wait, what? I don't understand this. Sorry. If aesthetics is the philosophical inquiry into beauty or another aesthetic value, and art, then the striking feature of Plato's dialogues is that he devotes as much time as he does to both topics and yet treats them oppositely. Art, mostly as represented by poetry, is closer to a greatest danger than any other phenomenon Plato speaks of. Beauty is close to a greatest good. Can there be such a thing as Plato's aesthetics that contains both positions? Strictly speaking, the phrase Plato's aesthetics is anachronistic, given that this idea of philosophy only came to be identified in the last few centuries. But even those who take aesthetics more broadly and permit the term will still find something exploratory in Plato's treatments of art and beauty. He might be best described as seeking to discover the vocabulary and issues of aesthetics. For this reason, Plato's readers will not come upon a single aesthetic theory in the dialogues. For the same reason, they are uniquely situated to watch core concepts of aesthetics being defined: beauty, imitation, inspiration. There is something more to be said about the label aesthetics that is important about Plato. One normally speaks of aesthetics or philosophy of art when the theory covers more than a single art form. For understandable reasons, the Platonic dialogues focus on poetry with special energy directed toward dramatic poetry. Tragedy and comedy were culturally dominant art forms during Socrates' lifetime and much of Plato's. Innovative, memorable, and now long enduring, Athenian drama invited scrutiny. Even so, and tellingly, when the dialogues comment on poetry, they also look at it in tandem with the visual arts, not capriciously either, but in keeping with an ancient Greek tradition of comparing art forms. And in this approach toward an overarching theory, they deserve to be described as practicing or undertaking the philosophy of art. James Porter argues that analogizing between art forms characterized a culture of sensualist aesthetic thinking before Plato, and so makes possible the early appearance of a general idea, art. Poetry commented on architecture, drama on rhetoric. In another fashion, tragedy compared itself to sculpture. Even if one finds some of these interpretations of aesthetic analysis controversial, there is no denying that the homoerotic Shield of Achilles passage implies a parallel between the shield's presentation of war and peace and the treatment of those subjects in Homer. What Hephaestus depicts on the shield, Homer depicts in his epics. The poet Simonides makes analogizing between art forms explicit. Painting is silent poetry, and poetry is painting that speaks. Plutarch, a common element unites the forms of art, even though poetry casts itself as the standard that painting fails to achieve, possessing as it does the voice that painting lacks. Plato's explication of poetic mimesis by means of the mimesis in painting, belongs in this analogizing tradition, as Aristotle's account of mimesis will after him. I don't know how to pronounce that. On both theories, painting and poetry belong together as fellow species within a larger artistic genus. However faulty the theory that joins them, it attempts to describe the broader genus. At the same time, Plato appears to consider painting on its own terms and not merely illustrating a process also found in poetry. Many passages speak in approving terms of painting and sculpture, or recognizing the skill involved in making them as a techne, profession, or craft. Even the famously anti-poetic Republic contains positive references to paintings and drawings. Sometimes these are metaphors for acts of imagination and political reform, sometimes literal images whose attractiveness helps to form a young ruler's character. In any case, visual arts appreciated on their own terms and for their own sake. When the Republic treats painting and poetry together, in other words, it does so possessed of an independent sense of visual depiction. It aims at developing a philosophy of art. The subject Plato's aesthetics calls for care. If perennially footnoted by later philosophers, Plato has also been much thumbnailed. Clichés accompany his name. It is worth going slowly through the main topics of Plato's aesthetics, not in the search for a theory unlike anything that has been said, but so that background shading and details may emerge for a result that perhaps contrasts with the commonplaces about his thought as a human face contrasts with the cartoon reduction of it. In what follows, citations, passages, and Plato use Stephanus pages based on a 16th century edition of Plato's works. The page numbers in that edition are, Jesus Christ. Okay, sorry.
Because it is teaching you how to return to the form of the good. And Plato's important because what happens is that Plato's ideas become the basis for heaven and earth, right? And so this is the basis for Christianity. Remember, in the Catholic Church doctrine, your life, our life on this planet doesn't really matter. What matters is our return to heaven to be with God.
Based, okay. That video. Newton's divine plan. Okay, we've done more physics lately, so we can do Newton. Let's go.
YouTube, Professor Jiang here.
Why does he call himself professor if he's a high school teacher?
Another update.
Okay. What do you got?
So things...
Oh, this is a new video too, 9 hours ago. Let's go.
Seem to have quieted down
Read the description. In this talk, Professor Zhang explains how and why Isaac Newton founded Christian Zionism, which is driving the conflict in the Middle East today. If you want to better understand this topic, here are some suggestions for further reading. Observations upon the prophecies of Daniel and the Apocalypse of St. John by Isaac Newton, the Schofield Bible, Christian Zionism Wiki, Dispensationalism Wiki, and Isaac Newton Wiki.
In the Middle East. But as I said, all sides, United States, Iran, and Israel, have committed to war. And this ceasefire, it's really a way to attempt to control the narrative. Now, as you know, the Iranians have responded to the American bombing. The Iranians notified the Americans that they would send missiles against U.S. bases, empty U.S. bases in Qatar. And that seemed to be the full extent of the Iranian retaliation.
For now.
And Donald Trump was very pleased with this very tepid response. And many of you might be wondering, why was the Iranian response so tepid and so muted? And there's a lot of speculation online.
Yeah.
And so what I'll do is I'll offer you my explanation.
Okay.
If you're fully committed to war, why would you launch such a tepid response to U.S. aggression?
Yeah, because it seems like that was not the correct interpretation. And you know what was the correct interpretation?
The decade's happening, if you know what I mean. All right, this is the
Sometimes a decade happens in a minute, and sometimes minutes happen in a decade.
this is the decade's happening in weeks right now.
Yeah.
Can. What we're hearing from
It's not. I'm all in. I'm all in on nothing ever happens. It's done in 4 days. Israel's going to bomb some more nuclear reactors. Iran's out of weapons. It's all over.
the country.
Breaking. The U.S. has completed bombing of Iran nuclear sites. Explosion at Fordo. Only political view is Hassan. Confidently wrong once again. Does this dude do anything other than watch Hassan? You guys. Nothing happened. We're all in. Oh my God, a new meme to Jack? Okay, but you tell us why nothing happened.
Well,